The night air over Vyerk's 9 southern marshlands was heavy with chemical mist and static hums. The bog shimmered faintly, not from starlight. There were no stars tonight, but from bioluminescent toxins dancing in the sludge. Each step Aeon took sank into the glowing muck with a soft squelch, her breath calm but shallow beneath her cracked respirator. She moved with the grace of someone who had learned to read danger from shadows. A short blade was strapped to her thigh, but she didn't reach for it. Not yet. Her eyes, shielded by infrared goggles, scanned the terrain for anomalies, organic debris, unstable ground, sensor pulses. Then she saw it, a cluster of sinew and light, half buried, throbbing faintly beneath a membrane of oily sludge. A living eye, not biological in any natural sense. It pulsed like a heart but saw like a drone. Left over from the Great Spill, it was a relic from the neural war decades ago, when biosymbiotes fought side by side with sentient mechs. Now forgotten, discarded, dangerous, priceless, Aeon crouched silently beside it, brushing her gloved hand over the crusted surface. It flinched. Still alive, she whispered to herself. Still remembering. If she could retrieve it intact, it might revive the broken medical core at Station B-47. The clinic needed neural relay tissue to reboot its life support programs. People there were dying. But she couldn't afford to think of that now. Her fingers reached into the muck, careful not to pierce any sensitive layers. That's when she heard it, a low, guttural snarl, not animal. Not machine, something in between, wet, layered, and filled with intention. She froze, then the shadows moved. 3 figures emerged from the thicket behind her, lean, tall, skeletal. Poachers, not human. Their armor was grafted to their skin like old scar tissue, and their eyes glowed green under their helmets. The one in front spoke, his voice like metal scraping bone. "Lucky girl," he hissed in broken standard. "We've been following that pulse for days. And you brought us right to it." Aeon rose slowly, standing between them and the living eye. Her body tense, she didn't speak. Words were wasted on creatures like this. Another stepped forward, holding what looked like a neuroleech clamp, designed to extract living code from bioorganic entities. He aimed it at her. "We don't need you, but your brain might still hold resonance codes." Aeon didn't move, but her eyes flicked just once toward the mud behind them. The lead poacher laughed. "You think something's coming to help you?" He glanced over his shoulder mockingly. "This swamp eats things like you." The air changed. A tremor passed beneath their feet, subtle at first like a heartbeat in the ground. Then stronger, rhythmic, wet. The poacher holding the clamp staggered, looking down. The ground under him bulged. Then it ruptured. A torrent of black sludge exploded upward, showering all 4 of them. From it rose a towering shape, scaled, sinuous, coiled in layers of sludge and bioplasmic membrane. Its head split open like a blooming flower, revealing hundreds of luminous filaments. Each one pulsing to a rhythm Aeon somehow knew wasn't just noise. It was asterisk emotion. The Rakai, a serpent born from chemical war and neural rage. Most were violent, uncontrollable. Many considered them extinct after the culling protocols. But this one, it rose between Aeon and the poachers. "Step back," the lead poacher snarled. "Shoot it." The other 2 raised their weapons, but the creature didn't strike. Instead, it lowered its massive head toward Aeon. The filaments brushed gently across her chest. Her heart skipped a beat. The pulse echoed in her skull. It was not trying to read her mind. It was remembering her. She didn't understand how, but the poachers didn't care. One fired a sonic burst. It ricocheted off the creature's hide like dust on steel. Another lunged, slashing at the coils. His blade snapped instantly. And a whip of sludge sent him crashing into a tree with a sickening crunch. The lead poacher cursed and activated a neuro grenade. Hissing, glowing red, and the Rakai moved. Not with rage, not with panic, with precision. Its tail snapped like a whip coiling around his waist, yanking him into the air. For a second, Aeon saw his face, wide-eyed, mouth open, screaming something in his native tongue, then silence. The grenade fizzled in the sludge, its energy spent. The remaining poacher dropped his weapon and fled into the dark, stumbling over roots and broken machines. Aeon didn't move. The Rakai turned back to her. A moment passed. Then, too, she raised her hand slowly. The filaments brushed her palm, warm and trembling. "You remembered," she whispered. "From the mines or the labs." She didn't know if it understood. But it didn't leave. It coiled protectively around her. Not as a pet, not as a monster, as something that had once been touched and chose to protect the hand that touched it. Above them the swamp fell quiet, only the soft humming of decay and stars unseen. And in the dead center of this poisoned world, a human stood unarmed, shielded by a creature the galaxy had declared untamable. Aeon looked up, voice steady, eyes no longer afraid. "Let them come," and the sludge stirred once more. Before the swamp, before the poisons in her lungs and the scar across her collarbone, Aeon had a name tag. It read, Neurointegration Specialist, Tier 2. She wore it with pride at the Delva Research Array. A sprawling bioengineering complex orbiting the core wetlands of Vyerx 9. Back then, she lived in a world of data streams and neural maps, fine-tuning emotion translators for biosymbiotes bred in tanks. She believed in harmony, between flesh and machine, between creator and created. Until she was ordered to destroy it, her crime wasn't disobedience. It was empathy. One of the symbiotes, Unit X-38, barely matured, had shown signs of rogue development. Protocol dictated sterilization, but Aeon had seen something in it. Not just panic, asterisk pleading asterisk. She placed her hand on its cranial mesh, reached out with her neural interface and felt. Fear, not base animal terror, something aware asterisk, something that knew it was about to die. She refused the command. They called it contamination of judgment. 2 days later, the array was wiped in a cleansing event. Officially a containment failure, unofficially a purge. Every technician in her unit was incinerated. She survived only because she'd been detained in an isolation chamber. Below the main lab, when she climbed out from the wreckage, the sky was already red and the swamp had begun to crawl inward. She never wore the name tag again. For 5 years, Aeon disappeared into the poisoned wilds of Vyerx 9, where mutated swamps and decomposing research stations became her world. Others came and went, salvagers, exiles, raiders, but few stayed. Fewer lived. She learned to breathe through tainted filters, to extract nutrients from acidic fungi, to sleep with her back to rock and her knife unsheathed. But more than anything else, she learned to listen. The creatures here were not mindless. Some were dangerous, yes. Some could flay a man in seconds, but some hesitated. She began to sense rhythms in their behavior, fluctuations in the electromagnetic fields around them that mirrored emotional states. And somehow she could asterisk feel them. If she focused hard enough, let go of her own fear, her presence soothed them. Just enough to slip by unnoticed, just enough to survive. It wasn't telepathy. It was something deeper, asterisk resonance asterisk. A rare neurological phenomenon, barely studied, where emotional intent could harmonize with ambient biofrequency. Once thought to be myth, now her only lifeline, Aeon turned it into a weapon of survival. She became a ghost among the ruins, salvaging medical gels, energy cells, memory wafers, anything that could be traded with the scattered human pockets still holding on to life. Most called her Swamp Whisper, others just called her dead already. Her only companion was a half-fried maintenance bot named Eco, salvaged from a downed cargo drone. Half of its cognitive shell had melted in a power surge, leaving it stuttering between protocols. But Aeon liked that. It never asked too much, never told her to stay calm. It just hovered behind her like a loyal insect, occasionally spitting out broken radio jingles or asking if she had refilled her nutritional reservoir. One night, as she carved open the husk of a defunct biomech, Eco hovered beside her. Query, why continue? It buzzed in static split tones. Unit Aeon's probability of expiration exceeds acceptable limits. She didn't look up, then stopped calculating. Directive conflict. Unit Aeon displays high-value neurosignature. Preservation recommended. She paused, wiped oil from her cheek. I'm not doing this for me, Eco. Then for whom? She hesitated. Then answered, for whatever still listens. That night, as she tried to sleep against the roots of a calcified tree, a memory returned, uninvited. It was Unit X-38 again. Its eyes were not mechanical, but gelatinous, pulsing with soft light. The memory wasn't of its rage or death, but of the moment she reached for it. She had placed her palm against its exposed cranium. Felt the tremor. It had leaned into her hand. She should have been torn apart. Instead, it had blinked. That was the moment everything changed. Aeon realized then, fear was not a weakness, it was a doorway. It opened both ways. The moment you stopped using it to control others and started understanding it was the moment. Something else began, something human. That was why she kept going. There was a legend, barely whispered among surviving researchers, about a living artifact left deep within the marsh core, the mnemonic core *, or Loi tr letter 1ea7m chi in the Old Earth dialect. A lattice of bioorganic material designed to absorb and preserve collective memory through emotion rather than data. Rumors said it survived the purge. Others said it grew stronger afterward. Aeon believed in it, not as salvation but as an anchor. If it existed, perhaps it still remembered what the world had been before it was scarred. Perhaps it could help her restore not just systems, but the balance between human and non-human life. And maybe, just maybe, it remembered her, so she searched. Day by day, swamp by swamp, guided not by maps but by pulses in the ground. Echoes in the wind, the twitch of a mutated vine when she walked too close. The momentary stillness of a predator that chose not to strike. It was there, somewhere, watching, waiting just like her. She didn't want revenge, not even justice, just one moment of clarity. One final memory that might remind this world what it meant to feel without fear. To protect without programming, to remember without being told to. The mnemonic core was more than a legend. It was her final message in a bottle. And she intended to reach it, even if the swamp swallowed her whole trying. Aeon didn't often return to the zones marked red on her map, and Latch Hollow was stained darker than most. It had once been a submerged research facility, a cradle of neural biotesting, before it sank into the bog during the second collapse. Now its skeletal remains lay half-buried beneath decades of rot, algae, and acid fog, a graveyard of steel and memory. She entered just after sunset, boots sinking with each step, the stagnant water bubbling beneath layers of bioluminescent film. The smell was familiar, burnt metal, fermented protein, something older and bitterer like regret turned into vapor. Eco hovered silently behind her, lights dimmed, its motion stabilizers making soft clicks as it scanned their surroundings. No visible motion, it reported. However, electromagnetic field unstable. Fluctuating, Aeon adjusted the dials on her chest panel. The readings spiked and dipped like a heartbeat on caffeine. This place used to think, she muttered. Maybe it still does. She passed what remained of a data conduit, its cables stretched out like veins split open. The building's frame groaned above. metal warped into unnatural angles by time and whatever had lived here after the humans left. Some said the lab's core reactors had merged with the local mycelium, creating a network that breathed, pulsed, remembered. That was why she was here. The mnemonic core was said to have been connected to this site once. Maybe its signature still lingered. Maybe she could trace it. Then she heard it, a ripple not in water but in air. A faint asterisk whisper asterisk, layered and disjointed, as if 1,000 voices were breathing without speaking. She turned quickly, nothing. Just the hiss of mist evaporating against the exposed conduits. But the readings didn't lie. Neural waveforms, bioelectricity. Not just decaying signal, asterisk intentional rhythm asterisk, as if something was trying to communicate. Echo, record this pattern. Recording. Signal resembles beta wave hum but with irregular spikes. Possibly mimicking language. Aeon moved deeper into the ruin, past a sunken wall scrawled with warnings. Do not interface memory storm. That's when she saw him. Collapsed beneath a shattered console, covered in dry blood and moss, lay a man. Human, his suit was faded gray, the chest patch half torn, but she could still make out the letters. Sys Tech Engineer Priority Clearance. She knelt beside him. He was breathing, but barely. His skin was cracked from radiation exposure. One eye was burned shut. The other flickered open as she touched his shoulder. You shouldn't be here, he rasped. I'm not here to salvage, she said softly. Just looking for something that remembers. The man coughed thick, wet. There's something here, not a thing, not exactly. More like memory with bones. Aeon leaned closer. What is it? It woke up 2 days ago. When I touched the neural pod, it responded. Not violently, like a child waking up scared. Then he convulsed, then steadied. It didn't kill me, it just looked at me. And I felt asterisk that it remembered others like me. Aeon's voice caught. Remembered, he nodded faintly. Not all monsters want to kill us. Some remember who touched them without fear. Then his eye dimmed and he was gone. Aeon sat back slowly, eyes fixed on the crumbled ceiling. He had felt it too. This wasn't just myth. Something had asterisk survived. That night she made camp on a ridge just beyond the lab ruins. The air was quiet now, but her thoughts were not. She fed the fire with sterile gel packs, letting the low heat warm her fingers. Eco remained powered down in hibernation mode, its core humming in low pulses. She didn't mean to sleep, but exhaustion found her. And with it, the dream. She stood in a cavern made of pulsing bone and root, the air heavy with the scent of rain on metal. Before her, curled like a dying god, was a creature vast beyond logic, its skin translucent, its breath labored. From the sockets of its eyes spilled not rage, but grief asterisk. Each tremble of its spine echoed like a cry underwater. It wept, not for pain, for memory, and Aeon stepped forward wordless and pressed her palm against its flesh. When she awoke, the fire was out, but something was different. Her bedroll was dry, but surrounded by a wide circle of asterisk smooth sludge asterisk, as if something massive had coiled around her in the night. Footprints none, but the mud bore the weight of a presence. Something that had watched her, protected her, and then left without disturbing a leaf. She stood slowly, scanning the trees, the water, the sky. Nothing moved, but she no longer felt alone, not in the terrifying, hunted sense she had grown used to, but in a different way. A presence lingering just beyond perception, not stalking her. Watching over her, she knelt and touched the ground. The same rhythm from the lab whispered again, soft, undulating. Almost like a lullaby, and for the first time since the Delver array fell from the sky. Aeon felt a flicker of something she'd buried long ago. Not hope, but recognition. She whispered into the mist, more to herself than anything else. You remember me, don't you? There was no answer, but the mud trembled just once. Then went still. Aeon's gloves were slick with membrane fluid as she worked beneath the collapsed hull of an old medical rover, prying apart the decayed shell with slow, deliberate precision. Buried within the ruin was a relic, a neural core, pulsing faintly beneath layers of grime. The Lloyd TR letter 1EA7M Chi might still be too deep to reach, but this was a fragment of its history, a biosynthetic memory conduit. Intact, still alive, she whispered to herself, still breathing after all this time. Eco hovered behind her in low signal mode, keeping its scanners passive. They had come far from the hollow, into a dense patch of swamp where the air hummed faintly, and the mud seemed to remember where you'd stepped. She was just about to lift the core when the pulse of warning came, too late. A high-pitched whine split the air. Plasma shot past her ear and slammed into the trunk of a nearby fungal tree, sending a shower of phosphorescent spores into the fog. Eco shrieked in error tone, ducking behind her shoulder. 3 figures dropped from the ridgeline. Alien poachers, sleek, armed, and moving with the precision of seasoned hunters. Their armor was matte black, grown rather than forged, and their faces were hidden behind expressionless bone masks. They carried plasma rifles equipped with frequency dampeners, asterisk anti-resonance weapons, designed specifically to nullify neural feedback loops. They had tracked her. The lead one raised his weapon and hissed through a vocoder, hand over the core. Now Aeon didn't move. The second one stepped forward, leveling his rifle. "Last chance, human. We've damped the field. Your tricks won't work here." Aeon's hand reached for her knife, but a crackling arc of plasma grazed her leg. She fell to her side, gasping, the pain white-hot. The third poacher closed the gap and swung his weapon like a club. The impact struck her across the ribs. She collapsed into the sludge, face first. Her breath was knocked from her lungs, her mask cracked. The mud pressed against her cheek, thick and suffocating. Above her, footsteps, voices. Eco screamed static warnings before being kicked into the trees. Aeon's vision blurred. Blood ran from her mouth. The pain was unbearable, but more than that, it was asterisk insulting. They didn't just want the core. They wanted to erase the one person left who remembered why this mattered. She reached out, not with her fingers, but with the only thing she had left. Her asterisk mind asterisk. Her palms sank into the mud, open, vulnerable. Reaching downward, not in desperation, but in something older. A call not in words, in feeling. The swamp responded. A jolt ran through her skull, not sharp but deep asterisk. A tidal wave of emotion surged into her consciousness. Fury, sorrow, and an overwhelming asterisk protective will asterisk. Not hers. The ground beneath the poachers ruptured. The swamp howled. From the viscous depths rose a shape too large to be real, a serpentine mass of scaled flesh and glistening slime, wrapped in coils as thick as trees. Its form shimmered with a dull green sheen, as though the swamp itself had molded it from memory and rage. Rakai, its eyes opened slowly, 2 slits of amber light in the dark. They did not blink. They simply saw asterisk with the clarity of an old wound reopened. The poachers froze. The leader shouted something in his tongue and fired. The plasma bolt struck Rakai's chest and sizzled uselessly into steam. The creature didn't flinch. Instead, it coiled, moving with fluid speed that defied its size. In a single motion, its tail whipped sideways and sent one poacher flying into a dead tree. Bones cracked. A weapon clattered. The second tried to run, but Rakai reared up, its jaws splitting open like a petaled bloom. From deep in its throat came a thick jet of bile, corrosive, sizzling. It engulfed the poacher's armor. The rifle shorted, sparked, and died. He screamed, and then vanished beneath the mud. The third fell to his knees. He dropped his weapon, hands raised, trembling. Rakai stared at him. then turned away, not out of mercy, but because Aeon had stopped breathing. The creature slithered toward her, mud parting like waves around it. Slowly it lowered its body, encircling her collapsed form with infinite care. Its tendrils brushed her cracked mask, its biofilaments scanning. Her chest still rose barely. Rakai tightened its coils, forming a shield around her body. Heat radiated from its core. The wounds on her legs steamed as the blood began to clot. Aeon blinked. Once, then again, she wasn't dead, and something was asterisk holding her. She lifted her head just enough to see its eyes, not empty, not monstrous, recognizing. Tears streamed down her face, not from pain, not from fear, but because in that moment, wrapped in the protective embrace of a creature the galaxy had condemned. She felt something she hadn't in years, safe. "You remembered me, didn't you?" she whispered. Rakai didn't respond, but its coils grew warmer. Above them, the swamp settled into silence. And the last poacher ran. He would not speak of what he saw. But the legend would grow. Somewhere in the poisoned heart of Vyarx 9, a human had reached into the mud, and the mud had answered. The storm came not from the skies, but from space. Overhead, the cloud layers parted in strange patterns as a dull hum pulsed through the swamp. Unnatural, controlled, rhythmic. Aeon opened her eyes, resting against the curve of Rakai's coiled body, and felt it vibrating through her bones. A low, omnipresent signal. "Eco," she whispered, her voice raw. "Report." The bot emerged from behind a root cluster, wings twitching, outer casing scorched from its earlier beating. Its voice came garbled but intelligible. Priority class signal detected. Origin orbital satellites. Code, Directive 88, Biohazard Extermination. Aeon's breath hitched. She sat up, hand pressed to her temple, still dizzy from the neural resonance. They found us. Above, blinking red dots began to appear, drop beacons, seeding the air with location triangulators. It meant only one thing. A biohunting fleet was inbound. Armed with area-wide sonic disruptors, neuro-scramblers, and if that failed, orbital disintegration. And at the center of it all, more precisely, her connection to it asterisk. Rakai stirred beside her, lifting its head toward the sky as if it, too, could feel the net tightening. Eco buzzed. Human subject is flagged as contagion vector, emotional sync anomaly. Lethal force authorized. Aeon laughed drily. Funny how they love you when you fix their monsters. But if one of them loves you back, she stood slowly, leaning on Rakai's body for balance. Her fingers trembled. The wounds from the attack earlier hadn't healed. And the neural strain from contact with Rakai still pulsed behind her eyes like hot needles. A static crackle flared across her makeshift communicator. Subject Aeon Voss. This is Command Unity. You are ordered to disassociate from the anomaly. You have 1 hour to evacuate the quadrant. Extraction is available if you comply. Do not engage the entity. Do not defend it. She said nothing. Another voice chimed in, colder, official. That creature is classified as a Tier Alpha biothreat. It is not sentient. It is a mistake. Aeon reached down and activated the comm. No, she said quietly. The mistake was assuming it couldn't feel. A pause, then Aeon listened to reason. You were one of us. You understand protocol. She looked at Rakai, who was watching her, not with obedience, not with fear, but with something stranger. Trust. I was one of you, she replied. Then I remembered what it felt like to be abandoned and called expendable. So did it, static crackled on the line. You can live, the voice snapped. You just have to walk away from it, leave it. Let us cleanse this place and start over. You'll be exonerated. Aeon closed her eyes. And if the thing that saved my life held me like something worth protecting isn't human enough to be spared, she opened them, voice firm. Then maybe I don't want to be human anymore. She cut the line. The wind shifted. A new signal burst into the air, louder, sharper. The countdown had begun, 40 minutes. After that, orbital cleansing would commence. Unless she stopped the lock-on, there was one place left, a relay tower deep in the marsh core. Long abandoned but still semi-operational. If she could overload it, send a feedback burst into the triangulation system. It would scramble the targeting coordinates. Without precision, the fleet would have to abort the strike. But she had no time, no energy, no backup, just one ally. Aeon turned to Rakai. "I need you," she whispered. "I can't do this without you." She stepped forward, raised her hand slowly, deliberately, until her palm hovered inches from its forehead. The neural filaments there pulsed gently, awaiting her choice. "I won't command you," she said, "but if you choose to help me, then I'll ride with you." All the way, the serpent tilted its massive head. Then slowly it lowered itself, forming a slope of living coils. Aeon climbed onto its back. As soon as her body settled, she closed her eyes and reached inward, not with her mind, but with her asterisk feelings, pain, fear, hope, memory. She let them rise, exposed, raw. Rakai responded. The world exploded into color, not light, not sound, but pulses. Emotions passed between them in waves, not words, but sensations. She felt its pain, the centuries of being hunted, avoided, misunderstood. She offered hers in return, regret, compassion, the longing to be heard. Together they surged forward through the marsh, fungal trees shattered in their wake. The waters churned with each movement. Aeon held on, her vision flickering as their neural resonance deepened. Blood began to seep from her nose. Her ears rang. Her mind splintered under the strain of syncing with a being not designed for human cognition, but she held because he held. The relay tower loomed, half sunken, crooked like a broken tooth in the earth. Eco reached it first, plugging into the ancient interface, feeding it Aeon's command codes. But only Aeon could generate the emotional wave needed to override the failsafes. "Now," she gasped. Rakai reared up. Aeon placed both hands against its back and screamed, not with her voice, but with every memory that had ever bled through her skin. The lab, the betrayal, the cry of Unit X-38, the night she almost died. The night something chose to protect her instead. The tower pulsed. A cascade of signals exploded outward, fracturing the sky's invisible grid. One by one, the blinking red beacons went dark. In orbit, targeting systems spiraled into chaos. The cleansing was halted, but Aeon didn't see it. Her body slumped forward on Rakai's back. Blood dripped from her ears. Her eyes fluttered closed. Eco buzzed frantically nearby. Vitals falling. Neural feedback over limit. Emergency. Rakai lowered her gently to the ground, its coils forming a cradle. It did not roar, it did not flee, it simply waited. As it always had, because the one who remembered it asterisk was worth remembering in return. 1 week later, the official search team arrived on Vyrex 9. They came in black and white suits, sealed from the toxic air. Their boots crunching over petrified sludge, like explorers walking on another planet. Drones mapped the terrain, scanners swept for biosignatures. The coordinates from the last relay burst led them to the epicenter, where the triangulation tower had once stood. They found no bodies, no weapon debris, no sign of Aeon Voss. What they did find was a silence, the kind that settles after something has been decided. In the heart of the marshland, a wide circle of hardened sludge stretched out like a crater. But the substance wasn't stone. It was organic, mud fused into something denser, like protective skin turned to amber. Inside that circle, the air shimmered faintly. No birds flew near it. No predators prowled. It was as if the world had paused there. Not to mourn, to remember. The report filed said, *, no viable evidence of biothreat. Area appears neutralized. Subject Aeon Voss, presumed deceased. But elsewhere, far from the official path, where satellite eyes no longer dared to look, something had shifted. In a forgotten corner of the swamp, where water once festered and trees grew twisted from decades of decay, a strange thing had begun to happen. The fog was thinner. The mud was softer, and green real living green had begun to return. Young vines climbed old metal scaffolding. Filter moss reappeared along stream banks. Small insects darted across still ponds of clear water. Life, cautious and trembling, was waking again. At the center of this rebirth stood a small structure cobbled from salvage and wood, a shelter. Inside, a woman lay still, pale but breathing. Aeon, wrapped in hand-woven blankets, her skin still bore the burned scars from neural overload. Her breath was shallow but steady. Beside her, a boy of no more than 10 sat peeling dried fungus. Glancing at her, with the reverence of someone who'd grown up hearing stories. An older woman entered, carrying broth in a steaming tin. She placed it beside the bed, nodding to the boy. "She's stirring again," she whispered. Soon, outside, voices murmured survivors. They weren't soldiers. Just those who had refused to leave the planet when the others fled. People like Aeon, too stubborn or too hopeful to forget. Aeon woke on the 8th day. Her first breath tasted like wet leaves and smoke. Her first thought wasn't of pain. It was asterisk calling asterisk. Not words, a sensation, a low echo pulsing gently just beneath thought. She turned her head slowly. No more swamp, no more black sky. Only light filtering through cloth, and a breeze that smelled of earth. She sat up slowly. Her body ached, but her mind was intact. And within it something remained, a asterisk presence asterisk, not near. Not far, just there asterisk. Rack high, she couldn't explain it. She didn't try. That night she sat by the edge of the water listening. The boy sat beside her. "Is it true," he asked quietly, "that you rode a monster?" She smiled. "He wasn't a monster." He looked confused, "But they said he was born of poison." "So was this swamp," she said, motioning to the glowing reeds. "But look, fireflies danced just above the water. Fish moved beneath the surface, small ones but alive." "I thought monsters couldn't cry," the boy said. Aeon looked into the darkness. "Sometimes monsters are just memories no one ever bothered to understand." From that night on, she stayed with them, not as a hero, not as a myth, but as a listener. She began recording not data but feelings, not to catalog, not to study, but to teach. To show others how to feel what she had felt when she pressed her hand into the mud, and it felt her back. She taught the children not to fear the strange sounds in the night, but to pay attention. To wait, to respond only when needed, not out of panic but out of respect. One evening, a child wandered to the edge of the recovering marsh. The others froze. There had been rumors of something living there, something large asterisk. The adults called out, afraid, but the child didn't run. Instead, she stepped forward and held out her hand. From the shadow something moved, a tall shape, fluid, covered in vines and algae, its body half submerged in the water. The villagers gasped. The child didn't. She stood still. The shape lowered its head and touched its forehead softly against the girl's open palm. Not with hunger, not with violence, but with memory. The others watched, unmoving, as the child turned and smiled. Then walked back. No one spoke for a long time. Aeon stood at the edge, tears quietly streaking her face. Not out of sadness, but because she had finally seen the moment she had lived her entire life for, a human choosing not to fear. A creature choosing not to hide, and a world choosing, for once, to remember something other than war. 10 years had passed since the Directive 88 incident on Vierx 9. The world had moved on. Files were closed, names forgotten, records redacted. The planet itself was now listed as a bioregenerative anomaly, its recovery labeled as spontaneous, unexplainable, and statistically improbable. But in one corner of the galaxy, at the annual Interstellar Ethics and Innovation Summit, a moment of memory was carved into the spotlight. A man stood before the largest auditorium in the Archivian spiral. He was old, thin, with the slow speech of someone who had seen too much and still chosen to speak. Behind him, the hollow screen shimmered as the crowd settled into silence. "I won't begin with data," he said. "I'll begin with a question." He tapped a button on the panel. The screen flickered. Lines of interference, static, then grainy footage long degraded. A field of fog, a storm of electromagnetic discharges crashing into marshland. And through the chaos, emerging from sludge and flame, a figure. Small, human, riding something vast and writhing, a serpentine body made of earth and memory. Lightning flashed. The girl leaned forward, one hand pressed to the creature's skin, eyes closed in focus. They dove straight into the beacon field, together, disappearing in a burst of white. The auditorium held its breath, then the image froze. "She didn't win by commanding machines," the speaker said quietly. "She won by being the first to ask, what if monsters just needed to be heard?" Whispers moved through the room. The man continued, "For years we thought survival meant control. That understanding came only after dominance. We taught generations to defend, to neutralize, to eliminate. Aeon Voss taught us something else." He turned back to the audience. "She taught us that resonance isn't just a neural trick. It's an act of choice, a commitment to open yourself to what you fear without turning it into an enemy before you understand it." He raised a small booklet, aged, fragile. "This is her journal. Recovered 5 years after the incident. Found in a shelter beside a swamp that should have been dead, but was very much alive. One passage was particularly difficult to translate. It wasn't written in code or language. It was written in asterisk emotion, in layered waves of remembered pain and trust." He opened it to a marked page and read aloud. "Being human was never about surviving monsters. It was about choosing to feel them before deciding what they are." He paused and then added, "We've built weapons to survive." She built silence and let it speak. On the screen behind him, the image changed. Not war footage, not data graphs, but a child small with wide eyes reaching out toward a looming, moss-covered shape in the shadows of a reborn forest. The shape did not retreat. It bent down, slowly, gently. Forehead to palm, a simple gesture, but everything had changed because of it. The man looked around the room, voice low but steady. "So I leave you with this," he said. "If you're human, don't ask how many beasts you can outsmart. Don't measure your worth by how many things fear you. Ask this instead: when one shields you, do you still remember how to protect it back?" He closed the journal. The screen went dark. No applause followed, only silence. A silence that felt like the swamp, dense, alive and listening. And perhaps, somewhere beneath the surface of the universe, something heard. Something remembered, and waited quietly, not to be hunted, but to be understood. Asterisk.